Right, so as I mentioned, like I would make a quick video on the difference between the multiplicative comparison and the repeated addition multiplication number sentences. So this is the extra practice for lesson 12. Okay, so let's go through this together, right? And I guess you could pause it just to see if you're right and we're thinking the same way. So Javier is 2/3 as tall as his dad. If his dad is 49 inches tall, how tall is Javier? To me, that's multiplicative comparison. I'm just going to write MC. And I'm saying that because there's no sense of a ratio relationship or per or for every in this problem. Right? Letter B is the same thing. A water cooler contains 5 gallons of water. At the end of the day, 3/4 of the water cooler had been drained. So there's no like ratio relationship going on here. Well, there's no for every or per kind of going on here. So I think this is another MC. Julie runs 4 times a week. Here we go. Her route is 2 1/4 miles long. How many miles does she run each week? So for this, this would be like 2 1/4 plus 2 1/4 plus 2, etc. Because it says, right, she runs 4 times a week, plus one more, 4 times a week. Right, and her route is 2 1/4 miles long. So you would be adding 2 1/4, 2 1/4, etc. So that is repeated addition. If 2/3 of a class went on a field trip and there are 24 students, how many students went on a field trip? Is there any sort of repeated addition going on in this problem? No. Sarah has 3 cups of soup. She ate 3/5 of it today. How much soup did she eat today? So that's, again, MC. If Jackie loses 2.5 pounds every week, how many pounds will she lose in 3 weeks? Well, that's like 2.5 plus 2.5 plus 2.5, so repeated addition. Every week, Dawn buys 2 pounds of coffee. However, this week, she only bought 3/5 of that amount. Okay, how much did she buy this week? Well, that is a multiplicative comparison. Even though it says that she buys every week, she buys 2 pounds of coffee, the question is asking you, it says this week she only bought 3/5 of that amount. So it's like 3/5 of 2, or 3/5 times 2. Oh, and that's multiplicative comparison. Betty uses 1/4 cups of applesauce to bake a pie. She wants to bake 2.5 pies for her family. So this one is more subtle. If you're talking about a recipe, right, you'd be doing 1/4. That's for 1 pie plus 1/4 for another pie, and then half of a 1/4, right? Because she wants to bake 2.5 pies, so she needs to cut that 1/4 in half for half the other pie. That's repeated addition. Lastly, Mr. Smith has 8 4/7 gallons of paint. If he uses 1/3 of his paint to paint his fence, how much paint did he use to paint his fence? That is multiplicative comparison. Okay? You can check on page 260 to see if this is correct. I believe all of it is right. Now, on the page before that, which makes this page 125, there's no answer key in your packet. So this is useful information here. They give you a number sentence and they want you to write a story problem for multiplicative comparison and repeated addition. So, right, it's kind of, I guess, known that it's hard to sort of distinguish these two. Anyways, let's take the repeated addition first. Mr. E runs 4/5 miles every or per hour. How many miles can he run in 5 7/8 hours, right? If I was to make another example, that's like saying a batch of cookies takes 4/5 cups of sugar to make. How much sugar would you need if you wanted to create 5 7/8 batches or something like that, right? Again, there's that sort of repeated addition or that for every or per relationship going on, and you want to use that sense to sort of help you distinguish between these two. This one is different. Mr. E's laptop weighs 4/5 kilograms. His lamp weighs 5 7/8 times as much. How much does his lamp weigh? Okay, so there's obviously a multiplicative comparison going on in this problem with 5 7/8 times as much as 4/5. Okay, lastly, 4/5 times 5 7/8, so they kind of just reversed it. Professor L's family had 5 7/8 cups of orange juice. By dinner, they drank 4/5 of it. How much of the orange juice did they drink? So there's a multiplicative comparison. Again, 4/5 of the initial amount, which was 5 7/8. And here we have that sort of ratio or for every or per relationship going on again. A recipe calls for 5 7/8 cups of lemon juice per lemon pie. How much lemon juice is needed for 4/5 of a pie? Note that when the operator, or A, is larger than B, for example, when we have 5 7/8 and it's larger than B, we use times as much, or at least it's much easier to understand if we use times as much when creating a story problem. And then the opposite is true. Whenever A is less than B, like in this example, right, we use the word of, because it's like we're taking a part of something. So the part that we're taking is smaller. Hope that helped.